Hello, it is Casman50 from the Hardware Diversity Discussion, and it is the first podcast for 2018. And, it's been a long time since the last reboot that I did, but it's part one, and we're going to have two parts with Fred over the next couple of weeks, and I've got a guest confirmed for the week after. So, without further ado, I'm going to introduce my guest for week 1 and 2, Fred from the Top Gear Los Santos. How have you been?
I've been great. It's nice to be back on your channel and doing stuff with you. It's great.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming, that's for sure. Do you have any sort of news or hardware stuff to talk about before we get started?
Well, yes, I can say I finally got my PC back up and running, and it's better and more powerful than ever, so that's a good thing. It's not broken like it used to be 50% of the time.
Yeah, it was just really ironic that he was looking for parts and he finally got his built, and then, I don't know if you've been following me on Twitter, but mine just collapsed as well. It was just upgrading the water block, and I've killed it. I don't know how. It's currently back at ASUS in Australia, so fingers crossed it's going to be repaired, but I'm currently on tomorrow's desktop, and so she'll be my editing and main PC probably for a while, I guess, but same with my laptop, which is a piece of crap, but I guess we won't go there. Before we get started into the topics, I do have something interesting to share with you all. I have a new Facebook group called Hardware Talk New Zealand, and basically it's an outlet for Kiwi folk to come and talk about hardware and gaming news and support local content creators. Feel free to join. The link is at the top there, and I'll have a link in the description as well, so if you want to talk about the latest and greatest, feel free to come in. But how have you found the group so far anyway?
Great. Well, I found it quite nice, especially seeing some good products being shown there that I wasn't aware of before, like, for example, the SSD that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, very cheap NVMe SSD on sale at the moment. They're getting rid of old stock. $130 for a 512 gig drive. Was that correct? Something like that.
I think it was 480.
480 gig. Yeah. That's still pretty crazy for a NVMe drive that's over 2.5 gig per second reads. It's very impressive. Alright, so shall we move on to our first topic? I guess I should probably have a bit of a preface to what we're talking about here, and that is the GeForce Partner Program. I suppose this is very old news, and quite frankly no one's talking about it anymore, but I guess reading quickly over things before I sort of get into the explanation, what have you understood in terms of, like, before you read these topics? Have you been following along with this at all, or, like, is this something quite new to you?
Well, I've got a kind of surface level understanding of the situation. I understand. I've got the gist of it. I just don't know the deep details.
Okay, Well, this came to light it was a few months back by HardOCP, and basically he revealed a conversation he had with AMD about their marketing and NVIDIA's marketing, and they're saying they wanted to start something that would secure NVIDIA as a huge brand in the marketplace, and they want to keep the main stickler they had was they wanted to actually move companies' gaming brands over to only exclusively selling NVIDIA products. And so, a lot of companies did that. I've covered them in the other, links to here to topics about, Gigabyte releasing the Aorus branding under there, and this ASUS line. The Republic of Gamers was going to be only for NVIDIA products as well. I think there was a couple of others. HP and Lenovo were thinking about signing it as well, which would have been huge in my opinion if OEMs decided to hand over their gaming brands to NVIDIA. So it's quite it was quite a big story a few months back. I mean, this was a Linus Tech Tips post from March the 20th, so it is a few months old now, and I thought it's still relevant to talk about because, frankly, I guess people still think about, well, what's NVIDIA capable of, what Intel used to do in the past as well, and just to say, well, yeah, it's quite a pressing thing to say, yeah.
And it just goes to show how much power the market leaders have, and how capable they are of influencing the market.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I mean they've got about 80% market share anyway. I really don't understand why this had to happen. I mean, they were, they obviously got better products to most people. They have the mind share of people buying NVIDIA despite not, thinking about the competition as AMD, and they don't need more, that growth. They already have it. They don't need to be afraid of AMD at this point. And we're going to talk more about AMD next week, because this is more the Intel and NVIDIA segment. So, but yeah, I mean, going on from that though, I mean, ASUS did rename their cards for the Republic of Gamers lines for AMD as Aries. And there was a bit of fake news floating around that towards the end of this article, towards the end of this big blowout, once NVIDIA stopped the GPP, that they were going to put their AMD cards back into the ROG Strix branding, but actually they're keeping Aries for the time being, which is kind of interesting actually. I guess that comes from their top-end AMD cards that were custom designed by ASUS from the last few generations, where the Aries 3 was a dual 290X water-cooled card, the Aries 2 was a dual 7990, and that sort of thing. They were really exclusive cards, and I suppose they wanted to keep that nomenclature for the mainstream line as well. But yeah, so because there was a thing floating around on Twitter saying, oh yep, there was a fake account saying they were going to kill the Aries branding, but actually they're going to be keeping that for the future. So yeah, What do I think of that?
Like, what do you think about the AMD and NVIDIA cards being segregated into two different brands? Like, what is your opinion on that? Do you think it's good or bad?
I personally thought that if AMD was going to have their time to shine, that was going to be the time to do it. They were going to approach these vendors and say, look, we want our own brand as well. We want, if Gigabyte wanted to do something or MSI wanted to do something, and they're like, yes, we'll have our own brand and NVIDIA can have their own brand. Because the thing is, if you look at them on the shelf, the boxes look exactly the same. I mean, sure they have NVIDIA logos and stuff, over the pictures or whatever like that, but in essence they're the same box. So wouldn't it be nice if you could actually look at the box and go, that's an AMD card, that's an NVIDIA card? And I think if that's what they were going to achieve, that would have been brilliant. But they obviously thought that this was all going to blow over, and it did, so they didn't have to. But I feel it would have been quite beneficial if they were managed to do that, while this was going on.
I agree with you to some extent, but I have to say one of the things NVIDIA was saying to try to justify what they were doing was to say, do exactly what you're doing, so people knew they were buying NVIDIA cards when they bought NVIDIA.
Yeah.
But I think that's one of the worst excuses I've ever heard. I mean, if you're capable of building a PC, you're capable of differentiating between NVID. I mean, like, if you can read.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can build a PC, you can read.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
That's how.
Exactly.
It's one of the most lame excuses I've ever heard.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, and as I said, the big NVIDIA logo on the box should give it away already, for the most part. And, I mean, the other thing that was quite prevalent about this was they wanted to be more open to consumers. They wanted to be more open to people who are looking to come into the PC marketplace, reveal more information and work more with vendors to actually understand their products more and all that kind of stuff. But, I mean, really, was that the case? And were they actually going to do that? And I don't think they were.
Nah.
On the back end of that, though, continue. Yeah.
I think, that it's a good thing for AMD that they are keeping their separate brands. And like ultimately, I think it's a good thing. And I think it kind of, in a way, solidifies them a bit more. If you understand what I mean.
Yeah, they're actually still a competitor in the marketplace. And as I said, we'll talk definitely a lot more about that next week. But on the back end of this, talking about them being more open with consumers, I don't know if you've been, this is not a topic, this is something that just came to mind, was the GT1030. I don't know if you've heard much about what's been happening with that over the last few weeks.
No, would you care to
explain?
Inform about it?
Yeah. Well, the GT1030 is a low-end GPU, and it's for budget builders, for adding into existing PCs, like the 750 Ti was a few years ago. Well, the original card had GDDR5 memory, and that was all good. It did what it did, and it was still a reasonably competitive GPU as its price point. But they've now released a car with DDR4 on the card. So effectively they've halved the memory bandwidth, they've halved the bus width to the RAM as well, and it performs horrendously. And that has not been put on the box. Like, you can't tell whether you've got a DDR4 version or a DDR5 version of the GPU.
Wait, so hang on, what you're saying is they sell both. They sell both GDR5 and there's no way of differentiating which one you're buying.
Nope.
Like, no way at all, or is it just something that's hard
they
to
have. If you look on product pages for the GPU, you can tell in like the product name, say it's D4 or D5, but that's it. Like, on the box, I don't think there's any way of telling unless you read some fine print.
Well, so do you think this is something? Well, really, this is extremely. I don't want to say misleading, but it sort of is. I mean, it's really just not being consumer friendly at all.
Exactly, and the thing is, people who buy a GT1030 probably aren't particularly well versed in PC hardware. Assuming things here, and it's like you could be potentially buying a card that's about 40 to 50% slower than what their card actually should be performing at.
And what's the price difference, do you know, between the two?
I'll quickly look that up, actually. Hang on a second. I know we're doing some on the flow benchmark here. So now, I don't know where I'd find the GT1030. Amazon. Let's go to Amazon here.
Alright, yeah.
Talk about US dollars. So we've got a GT1030 with 2GB DDR5 for $85. And
$85, okay.
Add 1030. I'll just do a quick search here. There's a D4. Oh wow, what? I think this has got 2 gigs of DDR. Yes, this has got 2 gigs of DDR4. Same brand. It's Gigabyte. $86.
86.
$86.
And how much the other was 85?
85.
Well, that's just completely ridiculous then. I mean, the fact that they sell
the same card. Yeah, same brand.
The same card,
yep.
But with half the memory bandwidth for the same price without a way of differentiating easily.
Yeah.
That's just, it's ridiculous if you ask me. I mean, that's something that has to be fixed. I mean, they should put it on the box at least.
Well, as you can see here on the box, it does have D4 2GB, but that's the only way you can tell. Like, people looking at it, if people were looking at it, you can't tell. You couldn't tell that was DDR4 versus DDR5.
No, if my older brother, for example, he can build a PC, he just doesn't know much about details.
Yeah.
If I told him go buy a 1030, he could easily accidentally buy the DDR4 one.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, you're very well right. Yes.
I mean, you have to know about this. This is something. If you're not in the know, you can easily make the mistake and buy the wrong one. I'm honestly shocked by this move by Nvidia.
Yeah. I mean, there was other things about the GT. There's going to be a GTX 1050 with 3GB of RAM, and they've completely culled the memory bandwidth as well on that, and they've put new boost clocks and base clocks. They've raised that by about 10-15%, but the memory bandwidth is now like 96 gigabytes per second, which is like tiny, like compared to like 150, 160 that the original 1050 has. 130 I think it is anyway, but that's still quite a significant decrease. But that's not launched yet, and I'd imagine that possibly they may well have learnt from their mistakes, but it's NVIDIA, who knows. And
also, if they're boosting the clock speeds, but almost in a way nerfing the memory,
do you think that will equal out?
Almost hides it. No, but I feel as if it almost hides the fact that they are turning it down. It creates the illusion they're turning it up when actually turning it down slightly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I think when I read the story, I should have actually linked this, but anyway, I was thinking this was a mining GPU. I was thinking possibly that because you don't need a lot of memory bandwidth for mining, but actually for like having that higher boost clock, higher base clock will make it a better mining card because of how much instructions it can do. But for gaming, I think this is going to be terrible, but we'll have to wait and see. All right, so we're over NVIDIA at the moment, but there's still more stuff to talk about here. There's one more topic, at least anyway, that's sort of going to be a bit affected by GPP, I think anyway, and that is a topic by a Notebook Check, and we're talking about Kaby Lake G, which was the godsend of Intel and AMD combining together to make one hell of an APU. And it's an amazing device. There's been lots of reviews about it, and frankly, it's unlocked. So you can overclock both the GPU and CPU. It's got 4 gigs of RAM on board. It's an amazing piece of kit with 100-watt TDP. Great kit. Yeah, and I don't know if there's been any updates to this article because it hasn't been updated since April, and basically they're saying that there hasn't been a lot of devices released with this technology, on board, and basically is saying that possibly NVIDIA doesn't want Intel making stuff with AMD. I guess this is a kind of short topic to talk about here, but what are your thoughts on possibly affecting Intel's bottom line with the GPP?
Well, I can say straight away the fact that this GPP, as you say, is hindering the progress of this amazing chip. I think that's really unfair. It's such a great chip, but the fact that GPP forces these brands into accepting that they basically delivering. It's like they've got no choice. They've got no choice. They've got no choice. That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah, exactly. Bad. Yeah, because they obviously brands. I don't know about now. There's no update to this article. I wish there was, but yeah, it basically was saying you can't sell AMD products because that's not what that's not what our partner program is. And it's like the thing is, brands didn't want to miss out on the technology, and they didn't want to miss out on the stock of receiving NVIDIA stock, so they can sell NVIDIA cards, and. As a punishment, they can't sell AMD stuff. But yeah, it was quite and affecting Intel as well. I don't think they would have set this lying down. I think they would have actually had something to say about this because they're saying it's a better performing chip than even the 1060 Max-Q and the 1050 Max-Q.
That's quite crazy to think about.
Yeah, I was like, it's an integrated. It's effectively an APU, and it's a freaking beast. It's less power. It actually is cooler than those models as well, which is crazy. But it's sort of like, as I said, I don't think there's any updates about this yet. But there is Dell laptops, there is HP laptops, and there's a couple of mini PCs that have it as well. But yeah,
does the Canyon use it?
That's what it's called. It's called this actual whole part here is the Hades Canyon. That's what it's called. Right. It's actually it's the Vega graphics and the Intel i7. That's all on one chip, which is awesome stuff.
Oh, I found the word I was looking for before. What's it called? NVIDIA has effectively given an ultimatum
Yes, an ultimatum. Yeah, exactly right.
That
Yeah.
was the word.
Yep. So yeah, but on the back of this article, there is an updated one from Hot Hardware, and we're talking about Google is possibly getting on board with releasing products in this stack. What do you think about Chromebooks in 2018?
Well, Chromebooks. Well, you see, I've never been much. I've never really. Chromebooks have never appealed to me anyway.
No. No.
I mean, I can say I think it's great that they will get this technology, and it will definitely make them much more powerful machines. But
Yep,
really,
definitely.
it doesn't really say anything to me because I'm really not that
No.
much of a person for Chromebooks at all. They're
I
not
remember
my kind of-
using a low-end Chromebook a few years ago. I think it was my cousin's, and it was just horrendously slow. It took me a while to get used to it, and I don't understand why they want. They are in schools. A lot of kids use them now, like even at primary school. It's one of the, you're required to have a laptop, and Chromebooks seem to be the way to go for that sort of thing. And I guess like if you're all working on the same platform, then it does make sense, I guess, because you can collaborate, you can have a server dedicated for Chrome uploads and all that kind of things. And I guess that's kind,
But also, generally, Chromebooks are a lot cheaper as well.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, I don't know if this is going to make them very much cheaper anymore if they're having one with a massive i7 and a freaking Vega GPU.
I'm thinking, doesn't this almost defeat the point of a Chromebook? Because a Chromebook, in my eyes, is supposed to be
Oh,
a very cheap and when of course passive. So I feel as if it almost defeats if you the whole thing. At that point, you might as well get a laptop, just a normal. No.
okay. Yeah, you might as well get a laptop. Yeah, especially because you can't do a lot of gaming on a Chromebook. I mean, sure, there's Chrome apps and things that are actually beginning to be more demanding on hardware, but what are you going to do on a Chromebook? You can't go and install Steam. You can't go and install Origin or whatever like that. So it's what are you going to do? What are you going to do with a massively overpowered GPU that's going to be completely underutilized?
Honestly, I'm going to say that this laptop I have here is an i3, and this i3 is 7th gen, but this laptop is not a slow laptop.
No,
and I'm just thinking that i7, it's completely the performance of that is completely disproportionate to what you can actually do on a Chromebook.
Yeah, it's got a 4.2 gigahertz boost clock. What
utilizes that? What program with the Chromebook utilizes that much?
I don't know. YouTube? 8K YouTube? I don't know. Oh dear. Well, we've obviously completely blown that out of the water, haven't we? That's just not. I mean, sure, you can install Linux on them. You might be able to do some Linux gaming on a Chromebook. But yeah, it's just.
Yeah, I guess you could.
Yeah, but that still completely defeats the point of having a Chromebook. Yes. But anyway, we shall move on to Intel, which is the star of the show today, our main topic. And a lot of news that's come out at CES and Computex, but they had a massive show. Yeah, have you been up with that at all?
I have to admit, not as much as I should do.
Yeah, that's a lot of news, definitely. But yeah, so we've got a massive treat for you today then, if you have not been following along. But Intel has released their Intel 8086K. It is actually out. This is an old article, but this was released at Computex, which was a few months ago. And basically it's an 8700K with a 5 GHz clock speed, as it's the 40th anniversary of the 8086 architecture and instruction set. So, yeah, I mean, it's just a very limited edition. It's not actually the first CPU with a 5 GHz boost clock, because that was FX 9590 from AMD. So that was a bit of a lie with their marketing team, but anyway, I suppose. And basically, for Kiwi dollar, We have a price of $698 for the 8086K, and I did look at the 8700K as well, and that's $592. So it's actually about 20% more expensive for that extra clock speed. And frankly, they overclocked pretty similarly. I mean, you can get 5.3 out of an 8700K, but generally it's about 4.95 gigahertz, and I'd say the 8086 is probably more likely to get the 5.3 that you get out of the 8700K, which is funny considering the 8086K is not soldered. It's still got thermal paste under the heat spreader, which I thought people were thinking that it might actually be finally soldered, but they're not going to do that for us this time either. So you're paying 20% more for something that may or may not be actually any better. What are your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are, if I want to get 5 gigahertz, I go into my BIOS and load the preset called 5 gigahertz, and then I'm at that having to buy one that comes at 5 gigahertz. I mean, it's that simple.
Yeah, I mean, sure you are voiding your warranty, and sure you are not guaranteeing yourself 5 gigahertz, but like, why? Yeah, it's like, why do they need to release something exactly the same as what's out there at the moment? I understand if it's something like a new architecture, or if it's a radically different clock speed or whatever like that, but it's really like, if it comes with limited edition items, sure, but like, you're paying for the box.
And the bragging rights in forums and stuff.
Like, that 5 gigahertz out of the box is only single core as well. So you're not even guaranteeing yourself an all-core turbo 5 gigahertz. I just... It blows my mind.
I think... So you're saying the H7 can get up quite comfortably to 5.
5 gigahertz is generally where it taps out, yeah.
How stable would it be at 5.3?
Without a D-lid, and without like quite significant voltage, like 1.4, 1.45 volts, which is quite high, you most likely won't get to 5.3. But like, because there's some companies out there like Silicon Lottery and some other like OC UK does some binning, so you can buy a pre-overclocked chip to 5.3, but they are worth a hell of a lot more, and the likelihood of that happening is quite small. But yeah, you can get there. It just won't be very cool, and it certainly will be, you might kill your chip. Where do you think 8086K will be? I don't think they'll be that much different. I mean, I think the likelihood of getting there will be better, but like, and the voltage may well be lower, but like 1.3, 1.4 volts maybe, somewhere in there. But yeah, if you're delidding, you're going to have a huge cooling system anyway, aren't you? Like, you're going to be doing water at least. But I don't know. It's not worth the money to me.
Yeah, all I can say is it's not worth 20% more.
No. I don't know if it's exactly 20% more, but it seems to me that a couple of $100 might well be 20%, yeah. Well, moving from one fail to the next, the 28-core CPU that Intel didn't launch, but previewed. I'm going to say previewed with a very light term because there's a lot of scandal around this CPU at Computex, and frankly, it's fake. It's a fake CPU.
Is this the one that they said would get up to 5 gigahertz, but they had some massive cooling thing?
Yep, that's correct. Yeah, they legitimately had a fish tank cooler to get this down to 5 gigahertz, and the cooling capability of that fish tank cooler was 1.7 kilowatts.
Alright.
So this thing's got a 32 phase VRM. It's got 4 8-pin CPU power connectors on the motherboard, and it's got a completely different socket. Like, it's a Xeon socket from the very, very high end CPUs, and that particular Xeon costs $10,000 US, and it's not real. It's not a real CPU. They're not actually going to launch it, apparently, as a follow-up to this article. But frankly, I don't know why they bothered. I think they're scared. I actually think Intel is scared of AMD and their high-end CPUs.
But I can see why.
You can see why?
Do you know what this reminds me of? I'm not going to say it like... This is, again, a controversial topic that I'm about to go in, but it's kind of like if you think the space race in during the Cold War.
Yeah,
you know,
true.
Imagine if you want to, let's imagine that the moon landings were fake. I'm not going to get into all that, but let's imagine they were fake. Yeah. We can see AMD is Russia. They've been sending up loads of things to space.
Yeah.
So what they do is they send out a fake thing like this. So it's presumably they're
exactly.
The munitions. This is what they're doing.
Yeah.
Where's your battery pack?
Oh, beside your bed. It's definitely like one of those things that they go to great lengths to actually prove their point that they are actually in the race still. They have landed on the moon, quote unquote, and it's just like, it's crazy to see like Intel really bringing out all that they can bring to the table to show that they're still in.
They're really thinking quite low.
Oh, I mean, sure, yeah, they are. They've basically jury-rigged a Xeon into an overclocking motherboard and showed that yes, you can get this into 5 gigahertz somehow. Like, yes, I mean, like, this is Skylake IPC, so this is like a few years old, and they're still on Skylake. This is still their top-end CPU, and like this is what it requires to get them to 5 gigahertz, which is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it is crazy. How are AMD doing? What are their clock speeds on their high-end ones?
Well, we'll talk about that more in depth next week, but they've got a 32-core CPU that's launching this year, second half of this year, and they're looking at 4.3 gigahertz on that.
Okay.
All core turbo.
It's not as extreme as 5 gigahertz, but at least it's real.
They could have shown this 32-core CPU they did at Computex, but they overclocked. They could have blown this 28-core out of the water.
They could have done completely. Because it's stock at...
I think it's stock at 4 gigahertz.
Oh, it's stock at 4, so it was slightly...
Yeah. It comes, and also the thing about it too... Bye. The thing is, with that CPU as well, it comes with an air cooler. You can run this 32-core CPU on air at stock speeds. And that to me shows that they've got a hell of a lot better architecture. But as I said, we'll talk about that more next week. But I think this CPU was... Sorry?
I find that very funny because there was always a joke with
AMD that they're space heaters.
Catching fire and they're just being the hottest things in the world.
Yeah.
But now the roles are reversed.
Yeah, the roles are reversed, yeah. AMD has a much better architecture, and now we're starting to see the fruits of what they have to offer in terms of that
sort of thing. And I'm happy that AMD is back in the battle.
Oh, for sure, definitely. Yeah, it is quite a significant role reversal that they've actually...
Although I have just switched to Intel in my system. But
one day you'll get there, I'm sure. Yes, I'm sure you'll get there. But I mean, like, yeah, it's just like they've really had to think so low. They've had to jury-rig their Xeon into a completely OEM motherboard that's not even out there to show that they can actually compete with AMD at the high end. It's quite sad. It is definitely quite sad.
Yeah.
But anyway, we'll move on to past Intel, because I mean that was just hilarious, frankly. Actually, we're going to continue on with Intel, I should say. Sorry, I'm just reading the topics again. And that is the 8-core CPUs. That's been in a rumour for quite some time, hasn't it?
Yeah, I've heard a lot about this. And yeah, I've heard a lot of rumours and speculation, basically.
Because, I mean, they're going to be released off the Coffee Lake platform. But obviously it's going to be... it's quite challenging, I think, for them to cram even more set cores onto the existing platform and not have huge heat and power requirements for their CPUs. So basically, I've got a leaked roadmap here of what Intel and AMD are due to launch this year, and we're looking at possibly Z390 chipset requiring the 8-core CPUs, which is going to be, even though it's going to be completely the same chipset, and I think this has been said that it might actually be cancelled, because this is quite an old article coming from May, but yeah, what are your thoughts on 8 cores on the mainstream? And also, in response to this, I don't know if you saw the topic on the Hardware Talk New Zealand page where they said that Intel are actually going to be renaming their Extreme platform CPUs. Like, they're going to be removing the X series, they're going to be calling it something different. So do you think, my theory is that because of how much the mainstream has been encroaching onto the Extreme series platform, so remember, only last generation they had 10 cores, was the maximum on the Extreme series platform. Do you think 8 cores is making the crossroads too thin, do you think?
Well, I can say now, as far as the first question you asked me, what do I think about it coming to the mainstream? My honest opinion is that I don't think a lot, like, the mainstream market has a need for 8 cores.
No.
But I think that the fact that 8 cores will come into the mainstream, I think that will bring down the price for the even higher end ones. So the professionals who really need to utilize it will be able to get their things cheaper.
You would hope so. You'd really think that possibly having having the mainstream be able to have 8 cores, at $500-600 I really don't know how much it's going to be worth. But yeah, you'd think that would bring down the price of the very high end. But as I said, maybe that's got something to do with them imagining the Extreme series platform as a whole. Like, maybe that's going to be a lot cheaper. They're going to be rebuilding the whole architecture. Who knows? I mean, I just don't know what that's going to be involved. But we'll have to wait and see
At this point, there's a lot of uncertainty.
Yeah, certainly, that's for sure. I mean, they can delay. They've obviously delayed 10 nanometers as well, because we've only seen the very, very low-end CPUs that have been released on 10 nanometer. I think they're dual-core Atoms, which is obviously the lowest of the low.
I know what Atoms are.
Obviously the yields aren't very high, and their technology isn't at the point where they can release lots and lots of CPUs there yet. So, do you think they're going to require 10 nanometers for 8 cores, or are they going to try and stick as much as they can on 14 before they can? Because this 10 nanometer on the mainstream may not even come till 2020 at this stage yet. It's going to be so long until they get a lot of yields to be able to do that yet. So do you think Intel's finally going to be behind?
Well, I think that look about the 8 core coming to the mainstream, the rumor saying that it's going to happen quite soon, relatively soon, right? But looking at how delayed the 10 nanometer thing is, I don't believe that the 8 core is going to be released on the 10 nanometer. I think they're going to try and cram onto the 14.
Oh yeah, I completely agree with that. I mean, I don't think I can just imagine Intel is going to actually release a whole new architecture on 10 nanometers. It may not even be anything close to what we have now in terms of what they can do, because they may even have to redesign the whole thing so they can actually make 10 nanometer a viable process for them. Because I mean, it just seems to be that what they have now is just at the bleeding edge of what they can offer, and I don't think they could offer much more than that.
I agree.
And AMD's got a hell of a lot more that they can, so it's just going to be that space race again, isn't it? Cores, the core race they call it. It's like, how many cores can you cram on a CPU, and how well can you do that? I suppose is the better question to ask too, because I mean, as we saw about the 28, it's obviously not that good of a implementation at this stage.
Well, as far as core count goes, I feel as if AMD has kind of always been a bit in front.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean even their quote unquote 8 cores that they had on their FX series CPUs, they still once actually things were optimized for the CPUs, they did actually come a hell of a lot up better in performance. And seriously, they were outpacing i5s. Like, sure, they weren't initially, but towards the end of their life, they were actually better than most i5 CPUs at stock.
I've actually got a H350 in my cupboard right now.
Well,
Just sitting in my cupboard,
I hope you stick that
collecting
on your wall. That's great because they're a very, very they weren't a very good CPU and they were a laughing stock for a long time, but actually they were a lot better than people said they were.
Oh, definitely.
That's for sure. So yeah, any closing thoughts on 10 nanometers, 8 cores, and delays on 8 cores as well?
Well, I think that it's the fact that 8 cores will be coming to the mainstream sooner rather than later is it just shows great progress, and progress is always good, and it's what we need.
Exactly. Yes. Yep. Innovation. Definitely. Yep.
So, as much like I know I said it won't make that big of an impact on the average consumer, I still think that it's a great step forwards to be able to give these technologies for those prices.
Yeah, exactly. And like, competition is what we need. And even though it's probably a response to Ryzen on the mainstream, the 8 core CPUs there, and even though that, I think it's still good that we're pushing for multi-processing. We can have games and programs and stuff being able to utilize more performance if it's available to them. Because consoles, believe it or not, have had 8 cores for the last 5 years. And like it's like we're now finally seeing games be able to use more than 2 or 3 threads, 2 or 3 cores, and it's just like so we can. It's just it's crazy. Yeah, it's about time. Yeah, definitely about time. And another post I shared on the Hardware Talk New Zealand group, we talked about people saying that core speed is more important than core count, but I think there's a lot of videos out there proving that wrong. So yeah, it's just finally we're seeing core count being more relevant.
Well, if just 3 or 4 years ago, if games had been able to utilize more cores than they did a couple of years ago, but I think wasn't that one of the main things that made Intel the better option for gaming, because AMD's always been kind of focusing more on multi-core performance rather than single-core performance.
Correct. Yeah.
Whilst Intel's been the opposite, and of course, if games only can use a couple of cores, single-core performance is always going to be multi-core.
Yeah. Exactly. So they're finally now deciding to go, oh shit, we can actually add multi-core because a lot of people are actually using more than 4 cores. I mean, even now with the i5s are now 6 cores. They were the go-to CPU, and they still are the go-to CPU for a lot of people. They're now 6 cores. i3s are now quad cores, so you can actually, you can get, there's more performance available to them. You can actually, code the games differently. And now you can see that, where that's a lot more relevant, definitely. Yeah, so no, it's definitely good competition. I'm looking forward to the future. Certainly, they're going to say 2018 was the year of technology, but I think 2019 and 2020 will be a hell of a lot more exciting. That's for sure. Especially with with AMD, which we'll talk about next week. Yeah. All right. So, shall we move on again? Do you want to introduce a topic? I'll put you in the deep end.
Is this the gaming?
Yeah, this is gaming. Yeah, I suppose we'll move on to that side of thing. Just a wee note. I had a hell of a lot more gaming topics ready on my desktop at home before it died. So I'll see if I can get them back before next week. And we'll talk more about E3 and what they had to offer as well. So I guess we'll talk about what we have available, which is Red Dead Redemption. The trailer is obviously here. It's been announced. I don't know if it's got a date yet. Do you have anything about that? But yeah, I'll let you take it away anyway.
All right. So, well, Red Dead Redemption 2 is obviously developed by the same developers as GTA 5. Um,
Yes.
and, well, we were just having the thought of would GTA 5 um, shape its ecosystem? Because, well, GTA 5, let's be honest, has become a bit of a greedy cash grab
Yeah.
at this point. And we were just wondering whether Red Dead would have the same problem.
Yeah, yeah, that was going to be our big topic for this conversation. That's for sure. It's like, you know, is like, is Rockstar and 2K games really? Is it 2K
Well,
games?
yeah. Well, quickly, I'd just like to clarify that it is not really Rockstar Games' fault. It's actually Take-Two's
Take
fault.
Two,
The
two.
publisher.
Yeah, I
It's
see.
their fault. The
Yeah,
same also with Call of Duty. It's the publisher that's the problem, not the developer.
yeah. Take Two
Because it's
games.
unfair to blame the developers.
Yeah, as I remember when they were talking about mods in GTA 5 initially when it first came out on PC. It's like, well, actually, Rockstar's fine with mods.
They almost support it.
Yeah, but it's Take Two that have just said, no, we can't allow that to happen, which is, yeah, quite sad. But anyway, because I mean, but Red Dead Redemption, it's going to be looks going to be a good game. I haven't actually played any of them. I know they've been console exclusive up until this point. So it's not really been something on my radar, but I'd imagine they were probably very good games. Certainly before Rockstar became a big cash grab company, they were probably quite. I'd say I'd imagine be a good game, but I don't know about what they're going to turn into now.
Well, straight away, I'd like to say that GTA, if you look at where the money's been uh, the single that the money would be earned the first few years in the single player. Now they're earning all their money through online. And of course, if you look at Red Dead Redemption, which is a much more single player focused game, and I believe it will continue to be that through its life cycle, it will be just more single player focused than GTA. I think it'll be a lot harder for them to implement microtransactions.
Yeah, I'd say they will. There will be probably. I'd say it might be an online game, quite a big online game as well. But I guess it's quite a grey area where that would be, like how they would make that like a big cash grab for them. Because as I said, yeah, as you were saying, Red Dead Redemption was and is a single player title, not a lot of online interactivity. So whether if they want to keep that heart and soul of that, it would be a real shame if they got rid of that.
Yeah. So I think they will somehow find a way, but not to the same extent as with GTA Online.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, I mean, I can imagine that. Yeah, I mean, as I said, this trailer's been announced and details been announced and stuff like that coming at E3. But yeah, as I said, we'll talk about that
And
E3 next week. But yeah, continue on what you're saying.
I also believe that it will impact the gameplay a lot less than GTA Online, because GTA Online, the ridiculous prices of the in-game items
Yeah,
changed the gameplay because it made the game just a constant grind unless you paid. So I really do hope that these microtransactions don't affect the gameplay in any way, or that the gameplay doesn't encourage the microtransactions in the same way as in online.
yeah, because I feel that's not just Rockstar. It's actually, a lot of companies now are, like Call of Duty, for example, has now got rid of their single player campaign, like in their latest game. I don't know what it's going to be. I forgot the name of it. But yeah, they've got rid of single player. They're actually going to have a battle royale mode in Call of Duty. Like, like, how crazy can you get for online? So yeah, of course, there's going to be a lot of publishers and a lot of companies are actually really pushing the online DLC and the online in-game items and that sort of thing. Like the backlash that Star Wars got for it, you'd think that perhaps people would learn that that's not okay.
Once again, Star Wars got backlash because these microtransactions affected the gameplay. It made it, like I say, it changes the gameplay. Because the microtransactions, they're there as a way of speeding up progress, right?
Yeah.
So if you want people to buy more of your product, what do? You make it so that progress is extremely slow unless they pay money,
Yeah.
which then affects the gameplay. But as long as it doesn't do that, if it's purely cosmetic, even if it's slightly overpowered weapons or something, no, but I don't. It's annoying, but it's not as bad as changing the game and making it an unenjoyable experience or a complete grind unless you pay.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, and it's I guess we'll move on to Battlefield talking about that too because EA's had a huge history of making making a lot of online DLC and a lot of that sort of thing. So I mean, have you played a lot of the Battlefield series? Like, what are your thoughts?
You bet I have.
Yeah,
I have played a lot of Battlefield. I'd say, as far as the thing you say about online DLC, that I haven't really experienced that firsthand because I remember there was a point where every week there would be, well, for a certain, how many DLCs are, is that 5, 6 big DLCs? Well, they had like a month laid out, and every week one of the DLCs would be free to
Battlefield 4 it was, wasn't it?
Battlefield 4, and I jumped onto that, so I got every single DLC for free. So that
was towards the end of its life, of course. I think that was not too long after Battlefield 1 came out, I think, from memory.
It wasn't, but I think that's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, definitely having free.
Especially the way they were talking about how there wouldn't be any season pass or microtransaction, all that stuff. I think that's really a good step.
Yes, I hope EA has learnt from that because I mean, it's kind of I prefer Battlefield much more than Call of Duty. I've never been a COD fan.
I've always preferred. I've always preferred slightly more realistic shooters, and I'm not saying Battlefield's realistic because I have to say my favorite shooting game is probably Arma. Yeah. But Battlefield, it kind of bridges the gap a bit.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I just like the vehicles personally. That's kind of the big draw. Yeah. I suppose that's probably why I liked Gears of War as well because they had a lot of vehicle gameplay in that, which was quite fun. But yeah, I guess it's going to be a great game. I'll see what happens when it comes out on sale and what the reviews are like and things like that. But EA games have been notoriously expensive. But yeah,
I really disliked the graphical changes that were made from Battlefield 4 to Battlefield 1. So I hope that the Battlefield 5 is more of a return to form in a way because Battlefield's always had realistic graphics for that time. But I feel as if Battlefield 1 came with a slightly different art style, if you understand what I mean.
Yeah, they had a lot of like...
It didn't feel very photorealistic in that sense. It was great graphics, but not super realistic graphics.
Yeah, I only played the open beta for Battlefield 1, and I noticed that it was only one map, so I guess that didn't help my sort of ideas of the game, but there was a lot of dust, a lot of desert storm sort of weather, and it kind of like, it was quite hard to know what was going on sometimes, and yes, the art style was a bit more cartoony, I guess, because everything that they had in their game might have been not quite accurate. Like, I don't think it actually existed, so they couldn't base their design on anything, so they sort of had to make it up. But I guess Battlefield 5 being in World War II, you can definitely have a lot more of a grip, a sense on what actually existed, so they can base your designs on real things.
But like, I think that I personally did. I am a sucker for weather in games. If there's good weather in games, I'm just all over it. That's one of my favorite graphical things. So I actually quite enjoyed that aspect of Battlefield 1's graphics, but I think the art style was a tiny bit more towards the cartoonish side than it was the realistic side.
Yeah, and I hope it looks like there's been leaked trailers and leaked like gameplay footage of Battlefield 5, and it looks like it's going to be
leaked, but it's in closed beta, so it is proper
footage. Yeah. So it looks like it's going to be quite a good game. Yeah.
To me, it looks better, but I still disagree with the HUD.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I haven't looked at too in depth, but yeah, there was a bit of I can imagine that. Hopefully, that's going to be customizable to an extent.
Yeah, but I don't like the jump they made from, like I say, once again from Battlefield 4 to Battlefield 1 with the HUD. I didn't like it.
Yeah, I don't like the HUD in Battlefield 1 either.
Do you know why I didn't like it? It's basically very, very similar to Battlefront's HUD.
Oh, yeah.
Honestly, like, a lot of people say that Battlefield 1 and Battlefront, I mean, they even share some animations. At this point, I think, like, they are kind of just
the same game. Yeah. And that's what the backlash was in and like what the idea, like the Battlefront games in general, they just felt like a copy and paste. Like, and I still play Battlefront 2005 online. I still play it.
That's the best.
It's a great game.
That's the top.
Yeah, it is. It really is. And I'm glad Good Old Games put the servers back online. But it's just, and like, and it was just felt like such an insult to play the new Battlefront games. They just like Battlefront 2. It's what Battlefront 1 should have been when it launched. Because I think Battlefront 1, I played that extensively for a couple of days at my local convention, gaming, again, the big nerd fest that they have every year. And they had the PS4s out and we played Battlefront. So I played a lot of that. And it got better as I played, but like it just sucks ass. And I didn't play Battlefront 2. I missed the closed beta for that as well. But I can't imagine. It looked a lot better, but I don't know. It's just not the same level of gameplay. And considering they've thrown out a lot of projects that other companies wanted to come to them to apply for, like licensing and stuff for, it was just really sad.
Yeah. But yeah. And what do you think of the trailer?
The trailer. I don't understand why so many people were triggered about the female characters in the.
You know what triggered me? I wasn't triggered by the fact that the character was a female. I'm just gonna quickly bring up the Battlefield 5 trailer. But I was triggered by the kind of steampunkish, like prosthetic limbs. If you
yes, I did remember seeing that. Yes.
That she had. That was because that was on the girl. I didn't have anything against the female, just her arm.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's sort of. It reminds me of Command and Conquer style arts. The art sense of Command and Conquer, which obviously that's not what Battlefield is.
But you know what? I absolutely love the official release stuff. So much. Have you seen that? That's the trailer.
Yeah. I have seen that. Yeah, really, really good stuff.
The one where they jump out the plane and stuff. That's a fantastic trailer. I love that trailer.
Definitely. Yeah. Very, very cool stuff.
And it just goes to show that, like, a trailer is the same game, right? But one of the trailer makes the game look rubbish. The other trailer makes the game look amazing.
Yeah.
Trailers do so much.
Yeah, I mean, they, especially like how like the in-game footage, the in-game engine, and it's just like what you can be expected to do in the game as well shows you that sort of style of thing. So it does, it makes a big impact on people's opinions. All right, we shall move on. Yes, that was gaming for this week. We'll talk more about E3 next week when we've got more topics prepared for that sort of thing. So we'll move on to one of our last topics, and that is science and technology. So that is talking about. This is another quite an old article. This is by Tweaktown, and we're talking about multi-layered chips. So, this is like crazy shit. Like seriously crazy. Like I was not expecting this to be at all real. but it seems that you can now stack wafers on top of wafers.
It's pretty incredible.
Like, yeah, like I was just like, I remember obviously you can do that with, obviously there's now RAM that's available stacked, DRAM that's now stackable, with like HBM, and 3D NAND that's in your SSDs is now stackable. But like this is whole wafers. This is like a whole. Yeah. This could be like CPUs or GPUs stacked on top of each other. Like, what do you think about that?
Well, I think it's, well, like you say, it's quite. I mean, it came as a bit of a surprise to me, but I think it's amazing that they're able to do this.
Yeah, like, I mean, there was rumours a while back that now have been culled because AMD is no longer doing it. Well, supposedly no longer doing it. But where GPUs will be segmented into smaller GPUs, and so they'll link together in some way, shape or form. But this would actually make it a lot better. This would actually go a step further and actually say, you can have a whole GPU, and so you can add a whole nother GPU. It's just like, or actually probably even more stacks than that. I don't know how many you can stack, but the sky's the limit.
And what this does is it saves space on a chip, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. I mean, sure, like
in a city, it's always good to build vertical because it saves space compared to building horizontally.
Exactly, and like, I mean, sure, it's not going to be coming anytime soon because it's going to be like on the 7 nanometer or the 5 nanometer nodes. And I'd say what will happen. Right. So yeah, it won't be coming for quite some time. And also, it might be smaller GPU stacked rather than bigger GPU stacked because of the power requirements and the cooling requirements and that sort of thing.
I'd imagine that stacking would, in some way, create more heat than.
Oh, definitely, yeah. Because you're doubling the power density in one area, essentially, aren't you? So of course it's going to be, quite, we're going to require like twice the cooling. I don't know how much realistically it's going to increase it, but
maybe Intel will need 2.
Sorry?
Maybe 2 fish tanks instead of 1.
Yes, brilliant. Yes, it's good. Yeah, you got to. Having 2 28 core CPUs in one area. God damn, that's going to be 2,000 watts of cooling required for that.
That's crazy.
That's like you're basically overloading your wall socket on one component of your CPU. But it's going to be very interesting to see where this goes. I'm going to keep a very close eye on that, and we should see designs from these people in the next couple of years.
Can't come soon enough.
No, very much so.
I'm really excited for this technology.
Yeah, it's going to be. It's like, especially in like laptops or like small form factor PCs, you're just going to have like one die, one socket, and that's going to be it.
Imagine a place where this could have a huge impact if they manage to get a better cooling solution would be smartphones, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Because I mean, like,
of course, cooling would be the issue, but you'd be able to, like, at the moment, a big issue is space inside of a smartphone.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, and I mean, like, sure they all are a system on a chip, so like their GPU, their CPU are all on one system anyway. But if you can move that horizontally to vertically, then you could actually have a bit bigger surface to actually lay components onto, so you could actually have a bigger CPU, a bigger GPU on one square instead of having 2 squares. Not 2 squares, but you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, so that actually consoles would be a huge benefit to this too, if they can manage to get this all-on-one system for maybe the PS6 or the Xbox 2 or whatever you want to call it. I don't know what it's going to be, but that's going to be quite a big...
Xbox is so good. Why don't they have Xbox 2?
I don't know. It doesn't exist yet. Why don't they have the PC 2?
Have you not seen that meme? Yeah, the PC. Can't wait for the PC 2.
It's going to be great. It's going to be good. We're gonna be all carrying around laptops or some shit with like extremely powerful systems all on one really tiny wee footprint. But anyway, yeah, it's going to be really, really cool stuff, and I'm definitely looking forward to how that's going to go in the future. So the last topic, before we move on to our discussion at the end, is the FTC and warranty void stickers. This came as a real big surprise. What do you think of this actually now becoming law, that it's no longer a thing?
Well, I think that it's really good that you have, because really when you bought something you should have the right to try to repair it.
Correct. Yep.
I mean, like if but just the fact, like imagine this: you are moving house, right, and you have your Xbox, and you drop it for some reason, right, and you plug it in and it doesn't turn on, right? So you want to open it up to investigate what it is. It could be something as simple as the hard drive cable, SATA cable got loose.
Yep.
So the hard drive won't send any data. It could be something that simple.
Yep.
But you wouldn't be allowed to access it to fix it. And it's just pushing the SATA cable back in. That's all it is. But you wouldn't be allowed to do that.
No, and it clearly doesn't require a electrical engineering degree to do that. Like, and it shouldn't void your warranty to do that, because. Like, I think there must have been a bit of a grey area, because a lot of people are installing like new hard drives into their PlayStations and things like that.
Yeah.
I mean, like, that must have been voiding your warranty. Like, it's just like, and like, yeah. So I suppose the same with Xboxes as well. But yeah, it's actually they've basically, the FTC was saying to all these companies, saying, look, don't put these stickers on your thing anymore, because they're no longer law. Like, that's no longer, like, you can't claim that. You can't take your thing apart without voiding warranty. Because the other thing too is like, what happens if you get your screen replaced on your phone?
Yeah, exactly. That would technically void warranty in that case.
Yes, and like, it shouldn't. Like, I mean, sure, they've got no warranty void stickers, blah blah blah, but like, of course they can tell if you've taken your phone apart, because the screws will have been undone and all that kind of thing. You can tell what. So like, yeah, it's crazy that this is actually now a thing. You can now take things apart that have stickers on it and not worry about it anymore.
Wait, if only the same thing was the case with delidding.
Well, I think that's still against voiding your warranty. I think that's still voiding your warranty. I think
it was the same.
Yeah,
although I can understand why.
Yeah, because you are technically, because of like, the warranty is only void if, well, it's actually, I was looking at this the other day for some reason. Your warranty is still in place if you use the included thermal solution and the included like circumstances where that CPU can operate normally. So if you take it outside those circumstances by removing the heat spreader or putting supposedly even an aftermarket cooling solution onto your CPU, technically voids its warranty.
Well, surely if you took it to court, you'd be able to say that, because like they say, you have to use the thermal paste they provide, the thermal compound they provide.
And the thermal, and the cooler, the box cooler as well, supposedly.
Wait, the cooler that comes in the box?
Yes, supposedly that is where your warranty, yeah.
What? So basically, what you're saying is I'm technically voiding my warranty by using another CPU cooler.
Technically, that's correct. Yes, I was looking into that the other day. Yep. I know, that's so stupid. That's so stupid.
That is really stupid. So they could technically deny repairs because I used another cooler.
Technically, but I think you could probably.
I doubt they do it.
I doubt they would enforce that too much. Yeah, I mean, I could imagine. Yeah.
But surely, if you left a couple of small molecules of the original thermal paste, you're still technically using that as well. So
yeah.
I mean, is that a little fix? Just leave a tiny bit of the original thermal paste on, then you're not voiding a warranty.
Yeah, the hilarious thing too is like you can actually buy overclocking warranty from Intel. Like they actually provide a replacement service if you kill your CPU through overclocking. They
But do you know what I think? I think that all use should come with that. Just come with it. Because
Yeah.
the KCPU is designed to be overclocked. The whole point of buying a
overclocking
KCPU,
CPU. Yep.
so you can overclock, otherwise you buy the non-K version, right?
Yeah.
But so the intention, Intel knows that when they're selling it, it's a CPU intended to be overclocked.
Yeah.
So then they straight away go and contradict that by saying overclocking will void your warranty.
Yeah.
So that's something I really disagree with them doing.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
like
yeah, stupid.
I think I was talking to you about this the other day, or yesterday even. I think you can actually void your warranty by increasing the all-core turbo speed. Like that's actually because you're taking it outside of the original conditions. Yeah, you can just buy like even if you want to increase your all-core turbo. Let's say like you've got an 8086K, you want to set all-core turbo to 5 GHz, even though it's only on single core at the moment. That's voiding your warranty. Like it's just it's crazy. It's crazy. Why do I'd imagine they would still give you a warranty if you killed it, but I don't know. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I think that about wraps up our main topics. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
All that warranty stuff is quite shady.
It is definitely. Yeah. I think even AMD, you void your warranty by overclocking. They even state it when you use the AMD. What's that? What's that program that they use to overclock with?
I don't.
It's the one that they brought out with Zen. It's the one that they brought out with the Zen CPUs. I don't know. But it even states it before you open the program. This will void your warranty. It's just like I don't know.
I've got another comparison to draw now. You know the original, the first couple of iterations of the R35 Nissan GTR. They advertised the fact that it had incredible launch. 0 to 60 was amazing. They kept on saying they had one of the best launch control systems. But if you use launch control, it would void your warranty. So
what?
Stupid. I mean, their main marketing thing was amazing launch control, but it would void your warranty.
You can't use it. What?
Technically, you'd be out of warranty if you did it.
Yeah. I've not heard of that. Thank you for bringing that up. Actually, I hadn't heard of that one before. That's just beyond belief, I think.
Yeah, I know, especially when their marketing was based around it.
Yeah. Like I know that I had heard of that fact before, that like their launch control was awesome. And you can't use it. What?
For the time, that launch control punched hard.
Oh yeah, it's definitely I can imagine it was a very, very good system. Alright, so we're on to our last topic, which is actually something that I've brought up in previous episodes, and I'll explain what that is over the years I've talked about 4K and what that means for the marketplace, what that means for the consumer, and back 4 or 5 years ago when I started this, I honestly thought that 4K was rubbish. Like, I thought that nothing was going to be using it. It was going to be a complete fad, and like we're going to move on from using 4K. But I suppose in 2018 opinions changed, so I'll bring it up with my co-host. I'll ask what his thoughts are first, and then I'll go back to what I think about 4K. So, what do you think about that resolution? How's it impacted you, and how will it impact your choices in the future about buying hardware compatible with it?
Well, right. Straight away, 4K is not something I use regularly at all. I don't own any electronic things that use 4K screens. I mean, of course, I've got a camera on my phone. I can take 4K, but that's about it. I think 4K is great for people who need it, but for people who don't need it, like me, it's not that good. And because it's just unnecessary expense. And I can't afford to buy 2 or 3 monitors to run a multi-monitor setup. So for me to get a 4K screen with the PC I have at the moment would be completely stupid because well, with this PC I can run games 1080p high ultra, but no way I'm going to be able to run anything near 4K. So for me, getting a 4K screen would be a stupid choice.
Yeah. What do you think about consoles and TVs with 4K?
Oh, well, I can definitely say that 4K TVs, you might not think it because when you're far away from a screen, like you often are with TVs, you don't notice it as much. But really, side by side, the differences between a 4K TV and a 1080p TV is
Night and day.
large.
Yep.
It's so much sharper. It's crazy. As far as consoles go, I mean, it's not true 4K, is it? Isn't it mostly upscaling?
For on the Xbox One, yes, and above, the 4K playback of content is 4K, and there is some games. I think Forza 7 does use 4K natively, and there's some others first-party titles that do. But generally speaking, it is on the Xbox One X. It's 1440p upscaled to 1080, to 4K, I should say. And I think on the Xbox One S and below, it's 1080p upscaled to 4K. So yeah,
then I'd like to ask, these games that run in 4K, do they run at 60 or 30?
30.
Because if I'm honest, I'd much rather have the 60 FPS than I'd want to have 4K.
The thing is, they do give the option on the Xbox One X, give you the option of running 1080p 60 or 4K at 30. But I think on previous models, I shouldn't say generation because it's still the Xbox One, most of them don't even hit 60 FPS at 1080p, do they? So it's just like...
No, most of them do.
Yeah, most of them are 30, so it's like, I don't think they even give you that option.
I mean, I also think that most people who... if you've got a 4K TV, then it's great to have a 4K console. But most people don't have 4K TVs. So for them, the fact that you can get higher frame rates is a great thing with the new generations of consoles. Even though they can't use 4K, they can play 60 and 1080p in all games.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's definitely like I like the idea of having that flexibility. And I think they're even going to be introducing a 1440p option for the Xbox One X as a default resolution. So that's quite... Yeah, it's going to be a bit odd. Yeah, but I think it'll look better on a 4K TV.
I mean, if you think about it, because I was going to say that I am more of a high refresh rate person rather than resolution. I'd rather have 100 because governments hertz TVs don't when was the last time you saw a 1440p TV? I mean, they
don't exist. No,
exactly. So that resolution, for them to bring it out is a bit I'm a bit confused why they do it if it's not really a native resolution.
I guess because you could probably run it at 1440p at 60 FPS.
On a 4K screen, but does 1440p scale properly on?
It would look better because it would actually be, instead of stretching it like 30% instead of like completely doubling the image. It'd be stretching it only a little bit instead of a lot. So you do get that. And of course, having the benefit of actually being able to run at 60 FPS would actually be,
of course,
a benefit for sure. But yeah. Well, any closing thoughts? Or I suppose I should talk about my thoughts, I guess, on 4K. But yeah, I guess Monitors, I can definitely see it. Like if you're doing content creation, and if you've got a decent computer to be able to run 4K stuff, it looks beautiful. I've used 4K games before, and yes, I can imagine there's definitely a market for that sort of thing. 4K TVs are becoming a hell of a lot cheaper. Certainly the off-brands, like I think there's a Linus Tech Tips did a review of a 4K HDR TV that was like under $1,000 US. Really, really good TV. And I could wholeheartedly say that that's going to be the majority of people in the future buying those low-end TVs, and having them at that good quality is really, really a good thing. Phones, there has been a bit of a fad for 4K screens on phones. I personally don't see it. I don't know why that's a thing. 4K recording on your video is really, really good. 4K consoles, I think, it's a bit rubbish, really. I don't see that being a huge thing. Like, I mean, I think, as I said, 60 FPS is a hell of a lot smoother than 30, and having the option to have 60 is a lot, as was said before, is a lot better. So yeah, I can imagine that that's going to be a thing for the future. It's like, they're always going to be lagging behind a little bit, and we just have to wait for them to catch up for the standard.
I'd just like to make sure we're on the same page about this. Can we both agree that 4K laptops, like 13-inch 4K laptops, are stupid?
Oh yeah, I can. Yeah.
So stupid. I don't understand, because the pixel density, even on a 1080p screen on a 13-inch laptop, is
so high.
It's so high, and then you've got to think. Basically, what you're doing is you're getting a minimal visual improvement for a huge drain in battery life.
And performance decrease as well.
And performance, it's not worth the trade-offs at all. It's just no.
I know,
and then the price as well, because like the difference between the same laptop just with a 4K screen, the markup is massive.
Oh yeah, it's huge. Yeah, absolutely massive. And like, because my my partner has a reasonably new laptop, and it had the option of getting a 4K screen, and I was like, it looks perfectly fine at 1080p. Like,
I know.
And it's just like, why would you bother?
In front of me right now looks fantastic.
Yeah. Like, I understand if you're getting up to the bigger screen size, like if you buy a 27-inch monitor or whatever like that, but like at something that small, no, not at all needed. No, and as you said, the battery life,
phones.
Oh, your phones.
Complete gimmick. I mean, it's just it's got so much more negative impact than positive impact. Yeah,
like I can understand 1440p phones, like they were a thing for a while, and I remember the G5.
My phone's 1440p.
Yeah, that phones.
It looks nice.
They look nice, but like 4K, no. I remember reporting on that when they first came out with the Xperia Z. I think Z Platinum or something like that.
Yeah.
It's like, why would you bother? It's just a waste of time and a waste of money. And I'm glad no one else has caught on. Yeah.
So am I.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think that about wraps it up. Any closing?
It's a shame we had to end this on a rant, a negative rant.
Yeah, next week should be a lot better. I think that's going to be AMD galore and all that kind of thing. But yeah, feel free to advertise yourself now, Fred, if you want to say about anyone wants to follow you or anything like that.
Oh yeah, straight away. Like, if you could follow me on Instagram at the Danish Car Spotter, that would be peng.
Yep.
But that's about all I have to plug, really.
Cool. Well, don't forget to rate, comment, favourite, and subscribe. Please stay tuned for next week. It'll be a hell of a lot more positive episode, I suppose you want to call it. I'll put a link down to Hardware Talk New Zealand in the description, and you'll see me in the next video in a couple of weeks' time, because I don't have my desktop. It will be another episode of Hardware Diversity Discussion. And until then, peace out for now. Bye-bye. Cheers. Peace.